Frontline indices extend gains led by sharp recovery in financials. IT and realty stocks also gain, but pharma and metals drags. Mid-caps underperform. Asian Paints slumps after Q2 numbers fall way short of their estimates, especially on the volume growth. And while the company is positive on the outlook for the second half of the year, analysts remain concerned over the rising competition. Tata Motors reports a weak Q2 show as production hiccups at JLR impact the sales, but the auto major expects a strong recovery in the second half and holds on to JLR's FY25 guidance. The stock revs up. Revenue touches a fresh record low and stabilizes after RBI steps in. All Asian currencies weakened between 0.1 to 0.5% on continuing dollar strength. Justice Sanjeev Khanna sworn in as the 51st Chief Justice in a ceremony preceded by the President Draupadi Murmu at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. The ceremony marked a new chapter for India's judiciary as Justice Khanna succeeded Justice D.Y. Chandrachud. Hello, good afternoon. You're watching Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18 and I'm Vinny Motiwala. A quick look at what the market is doing today. Recovered from the day's lowest point and Nifty is holding on to the positive territory. 0.4% of gain for the Nifty, 24,200, managing to hold on to that mark today. So yes, keeping an eye out on that. What's not doing well is the mid and small cap. That's the broader market is underperforming the benchmark indices. So let's pull up the Nifty mid and small cap, both trading with cuts of almost 0.4% is the Nifty mid cap as of now, while the small cap also is underperforming, down 0.6% in a trade. Let's look at the top sectoral gainers today. We have Nifty IT that's topping the chart over there and holding on to very strong gains. Last week also we had seen Nifty IT performing well. Today also as of now Nifty IT trading almost in the day's highest point, 2% gains there, and Nifty Pharma among the top sectoral losers, down more than 1%. Seen a lot of pharma stocks today a bit under pressure. Nothing exciting there, and almost near the day's lowest point is the Nifty Pharma. A lot of earning movers today that we're seeing in trade. Let's pull up Asian Paints, Aarti Industries, Equitas Small Finance Bank, Whirlpool, Anthony Waste. All of them have reported a weak set of numbers, and that is why clearly we're seeing pressure coming in on all these stocks. While a strong earnings reported by GE Vernova, which is also a very good set of numbers coming in from the company, 5% uptick there. Krishna Medicals, that's KIMS that we know it, 3% uptick there. Sami Hotels managing to hold on to gains, as well as LIC reported a very strong number. So yes, 1% of gain that we're seeing coming in for LIC as well. We also have Biocon that's in focus today on the back of a news flow as well. After, they got a clearance for the Bangalore facility, and this is a voluntary action indicated. So Biocon managing to hold on to very strong gains, trading at the day's highest point as of now. So 8% uptake that we're seeing coming in there. But let's move on and talk about some of the other stocks that are in focus today. And we have from the Nifty Asian Paints, right? That's among the top Nifty 50 losers today. And it's a coat of red for Asian Paints after the company reported a weak set of numbers. Mangalam is here to give us the earnings fine print. What didn't work out well for Asian Paints this time? Mangalam?
It has been red, and how it's one of the biggest intraday losses that we've seen in Asian Paints, down about 8% when I last checked as well, and for good reason. If you look at the numbers, 5.3% revenue decline that the company's posted. It's lower than every other paint company that has reported so far. We thought, Kansai would be weak, Berger would be weak, Akzo Nobel and Indigo Paints were slower, but Asian Paints went ahead and surprised everyone on the downside with a negative revenue growth, and not just a negative revenue growth, a negative volume growth, a decline of 0.5%. Ex-COVID, it's actually one of the first declines that the company's posted in over 12 years or 48 quarters. So that's a negative, and that's percolated all the way down to the bottom line as well, with the margins compressing almost 500 basis points, the net profit falling about 44% as well. What is it that led to the miss? The company attributes that to weak consumer sentiment, persistent rains and floods in some part of the country. Also, the international business was impacted by weakness in Ethiopia and Bangladesh. The net profit was impacted by a couple of exceptionals, 124 crore impairment of investment in White and 56 crore forex loss in Ethiopia. The important thing to track, however, how much of that perhaps could be competition? Because if you look at the management commentary, the company has alluded to increased rebates and increased sales expenses twice. Does that mean that they are giving a lot more to dealers to push their product and that's impacting their overall margins? That is something we'll have to watch out for. Employee expenses too, as a percentage of sales, have increased by 13.5%. As a proportion of sales are up by almost 140 basis points. That's impacting their margins as well. So when you pay a little more margin to dealers and a little more to your employees, is that because of competition? That's something we'll watch out for. The company is expecting margins to recover, but demand conditions are still a little, subdued. The stock, with today's decline, has gone back to May 2021 levels. It's fallen almost 30% from its 52-week high, trading at around 45 times. The two key questions that everyone will want to know the answer to: one, will things recover for Asian Paints from here on? Or second, is there room for further derating after this big decline?
Thanks so much for that. But let's move on. And on the other hand, we have Tata Motors that zooms in trade, and this is despite reporting a weak set of numbers in quarter two. Sudarshan is getting us the fine print on the earnings. Sudarshan?
So Tata Motors has made a sharp recovery from intraday low. It's almost up 3% from intraday low and now is trading with a gain of more than 2%. Now it's on the back of positive management commentary company has given after Q2 earnings. Earnings were below estimates. Both Tata Motors and JLR have disappointed on the earnings front. But on the outlook, JLR has maintained its EBIT margin guidance of at least 8.5%. Even Tata Motors sees H2 FY25 to be much better than H1 FY25. If you remember, like Ashok Leland in the chat company had with CNBC-TV18 company said that H2 FY25 might have CV industry growth in the range of 6 to 10%, and for FY25 growth might translate in the range of 0 to 3%. So considering all these factors, Tata Motors stock has made a recovery from intraday low. Even brokerages are largely positive on the stock. CLSA has upgraded the stock to outperform and target is rupees 968 per share. Nomura 2 maintains buy call and target is cut to rupees 900 from 1300 per share. It says strong rebound in JLR in H2 FY25 likely. Also, it expects India commercial vehicle recovery likely by Q4, and JLR's performance across markets has been better than peers even in Q2 FY25. Jefferies too has a buy call. Target is cut to rupees 1000 from 1330 per share. Only UBS has a sell call and it has a target of rupees 780 per share. It says quality of reported EBIT was disappointing in Q2 FY25 earnings. So earnings were a miss in Q2, but outlook given by both JLR and Tata Motor has helped the stock to recover from intraday low today.
Okay, outlook was interesting for Tata Motors, but let's move on. And small finance bank companies, they are in focus. Equita Small Finance Bank, Utkarsh Small Finance Bank, Saturn Credit Care are in focus after their Q2 earnings. Abhishek is joining in with us to tell us more details about this.
Microfinance sector is under pain, and we are seeing the continuity with respect to deterioration in asset quality and pressure on the lenders with respect to return ratios or the bottom line. So Equita's for Small Finance Bank, the weak return ratios have continued for second quarter in a row. The slippages are elevated. It has increased by 31% quarter on quarter, but the slippage ratio at 5.5% is on the higher side. That compares to about 4.4% in the previous quarter. Asset quality has deteriorated. Gross NPA ratio and net NPA ratio have increased. The net interest margin is at multi-quarter low. It has declined by 28 basis points sequentially to 7.69%. Both the NI and PAT is way below our poll. PAT is at just 13 crore versus our poll of 157 crore. Utkarsh Small Finance Bank, the asset quality has deteriorated. Slippages have increased by 250% on a sequential basis. So the annual slippage ratio is one of the highest that you are seeing in the industry, close to 7.5% for Utkarsh Small Finance Bank. Their gross NPA ratio and net NPA ratio have increased. The disbursements are down both YOY and quarter anywhere between 15 to 16%. AM growth is weak at just 1.5% on a sequential basis. Operating profits, they have declined by more than 11% quarter on quarter, while provisions are elevated. Our provisions have increased by 150% YOY and about 67% on a sequential basis. So there was pressure on their earnings as well. So PAT declined by 55% YOY and about 63% sequentially. Saturn Credit Care, they have cut their FY25 AUM growth guidance to anywhere about 8 to 10% now from the earlier guidance, that is in Q1 FY25 con call of about 20%. The AUM growth is weak at 0.4%. Asset quality has seen massive deterioration. Operating profits have declined while provisions have increased tremendously, and that is why the PAT is down 60 to 63% on a YOY and sequential basis. Back to you.
Thank you so much for that, Abhishek. But on that note, we're going to take a very short break. Up next, we have Justice Sanjeev Khanna, who takes oath as the 51st Chief Justice of India at the Rashtrapati Bhavan today. And we'll get you more on this after the break, so stay tuned in. Welcome back. You're tuned into Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18. Let's move on. Aditya Birla Group Chairman Kumar Mangalam Birla is optimistic about India-US relation under Trump's presidency and hopes a better business environment and expects it to improve. Speaking at an event, he expressed his intent to expand investments in the United States and also talks about Vodafone's turnaround plans. Listen in.
That commissioned in 26, FY26. Yeah. And that's on schedule. Like I said, it's a very high technology, precision technology rolling mill. And it's the first rolling mill of its kind ever being put up in the US. I think that the company is well on its way to make a firm turnaround. And yeah, I think we can only look to better times ahead.
And let's move on. Shares of Ola Electric, that's zooming in trade today, and this is despite reporting a miss in the second quarter after the chairman and managing director Bhavesh Agarwal spoke exclusively to CNBC-TV18 and said that the company is on the path to profitability, and he added that the issues regarding their service backlogs were all now behind them. Listen in.
The auto segment EBITDA margin was very close to positive even last quarter. So our auto segment EBITDA margins, one can assume in that timeline will be in the positive territory. See, for the foreseeable future, I expect about 1/3 of our volumes to come from premium and about 2/3 from the mass. That would mean revenue of about 50-50. Any service backlogs are all history now. We are now doing more than 80% service requests within T+1 days. That means if you bring your scooter today, we will service it today or tomorrow. 80% of such issues are resolved in T+1 days. But our focus is to really build the future of the automotive segment, automotive industry with Ola Electric. And we are allocating capital wisely. We are on the path to profitability. So I do expect shareholders and prospective shareholders to join this journey and really build the future with us.
Okay, let's move on. And India has a new Chief Justice after Justice D.Y. Chandrachud's retirement. Justice Sanjeev Khanna today took oath as the 51st Chief Justice of India at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. He will remain in office till 13th May 2025 when he turns 65. Ashmit is joining Yumnatas to give us more details on that. Ashmit?
Well, an important day here, especially for the Indian judiciary, especially here for the Apex Court. 51st Chief Justice of India, Justice Sanjeev Khanna, assumes office after he was sworn in by President Draupadi Murmu in the presence of the Prime Minister, in the presence of the Defence Minister. He's taken charge already as the CJI. And importantly, he's one man who's made waves in his journey to the Apex Court. He started off as an advocate in 2004, got elevated as a High Court judge. And then, interestingly, in 2019, he was elevated as a Supreme Court judge. The reason that was interesting is because despite the principle of seniority, he was bumped up to the Apex Court when there were 33 judges across various high courts who were senior to him. And also importantly, he had never served as a Chief Justice of any high court, yet he found favor with the collegium back then, was elevated here to the Apex Court. But ever since moving to the Apex Court in 2019, he has been making waves. He's been a part of various important benches. Mind you, he was also a part of the same bench as Justice Chandrachud, which upheld the abrogation of Article 370, which upheld the stripping of statehood from J&K. He was also importantly a part of the bench that struck down the electoral bonds as being unconstitutional. He was also responsible for granting Arvind Kejriwal interim bail at the time for 2024 Lok Sabha elections. He was also responsible for issuing directions for striking down the petitions which had sought to challenge the redevelopment process that we saw in the national capital, especially in the Central Vista region. He's also responsible for coming out with a judgment which rejected the applications that had sought for 100% EVM VVPAT verification. So he's been a part of various important cases. He will continue to do so, of course, in his future term here as the CGI. But important to point out that his term here at the top court will be brief. He has about 6 months available with him. He's set to retire on May 13th next year. That's 2025.
Okay, thank you so much for the update there, Ashmit. But let's move on politics. That is heating up in the poll-bound state of Maharashtra. The ruling Bharatiya Janata Party as well as the opposition Maha Vikas Aghadi have released their poll manifesto ahead of the single-phase polling on November 20th. The BJP has promised a farm loan waiver, 25 lakh new jobs, increasing the cap on Ladki Bahin Yojana, as well as to 2,100 rupees and a skill census is what they've said as well. The MVA, meanwhile, have promised 3,000 rupees per month under the Mahalakshmi scheme, a caste census and removal of 50% reservation and ceiling that is there, as well as a free travel on buses for women. Okay, on that note, we're going to slip into a very short break, but here's a programming note. As CNBC-TV18 celebrates 25 years of excellence, we invite you to the most anticipated event of the year, the CNBC-TV18 Global Leadership Summit, and this is on November 14th, 2024, starting 10 a.m. onwards. A power-packed day with several panels focusing on India's economy, digital landscape, markets, entertainment, and a lot more. Only and only on CNBC TV 18. Welcome back, and thanks for staying tuned into Business Lunch on CNBC TV 18. Let's move on. The U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has named former Immigration and Customs Enforcement Director Tom Homan as the border czar in charge of the nation's borders and its maritime and aviation security. Tom Homan was a senior immigration official in Trump's last administration, and Trump made an announcement on his social media platform. Truth Social, a strong opponent of illegal immigration, Trump had earlier called for a crackdown on illegal immigrants entering the United States without valid details. Donald Trump has also made a telephonic call to the Russian President Vladimir Putin, advising him not to escalate the war with Ukraine. According to the news reports, the two leaders also expressed interest in further conversations to discuss resolutions of Ukraine's war soon. Let's also listen in to some facts that came in and listen to what former Governor Frederick Mishkin had to say on Donald Trump's win and what it could mean for Federal Reserve going ahead.
One of them is the issue of Federal Reserve independence. As many people know, Trump was extremely critical of the Federal Reserve when it wasn't lowering interest rates to his liking. Trump tends to be a low interest man, just as he says he's a tariff man. He's a low interest man. And when Jay Powell comes up for renewal, it's extremely unlikely that he'll get renominated. So in fact, that presents huge challenges for the Feds, particularly that'll be coming up towards the next election. So that's going to be a huge challenge for the Fed. A lot of pressure on the Fed to keep rates low, to boost the Republicans. That could lead to a lot of inflation, particularly if Trump chooses somebody who is willing to be, quote, a low interest rate person.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business Lunch on CNBC TV 18. Thank you so much for tuning in. But don't go anywhere. Midcap Radar up next.